It's like this. I started this painting with the wrong color. At least I think it was the wrong color. And so now I'm going to go back and I'm going to put the right color in. But the flowers I'm going to paint are orange. And I need to paint a blue background. So I'm thinking that in order to do that, I may have to use gouache for the flowers. I may have to do it because I don't think regular watercolor, which is transparent, is going to allow me to paint orange flowers over a blue background. And I don't have masking fluid, and at this point I don't want any. Actually, I don't know, I may get some, but it wouldn't work on this paper anyway, because this paper is a wood pulp paper, and it's not gonna take well to that color. I mean, to masking fluid. Masking fluid's just gonna peel the paper off. But you have to, at this, the blue that's on here is a nice dark, saturated Prussian blue, which is what I'm using, is Prussian blue. It's really saturated in the background in the sky of this particular photograph. And so I'm trying to get the sky color right, but then also to paint the orange flowers kind of on top of it. So it should be interesting, right? This should be interesting. So I'm going to pull the paint all the way down the page. We'll see, because you know, gouache is supposed to be opaque, and it is, but it can also, if you add a little water to it, it can be kind of transparent like watercolor. So I don't know, we'll see what happens. And we'll just go with what we get, right? We'll not like we have a choice. We'll go with what we get. The background does not have to be perfectly smooth, but I do want it fairly smooth. Hold it down this way. It's smooth in the photograph, obviously. It's the sky, and the sky doesn't have a lot of, there's no clouds in it, so. There we go. Let's continue. Get that all the way down to the end. And then I'm gonna have to let it dry. So using a coffee cup saucer as my palette, move this out of the way. I'm going to create my orange paint for the flowers. I've got yellow gouache, and this is super inexpensive gouache. The set, I'm sure that's going to be a little bit out of focus, but that's what it looks like. Jack Richardson, however. Anyway, that's my gouache, and I know it's not really great gouache. It's not Winsor & Newton. It's not Holbein or anything amazing and wonderful like that, but you know, I just don't use it enough to go out and get an expensive gouache. So I'm just going to take it off the cap, I think. A little bit of yellow. Let's try that again. There's a lot on the cap. So some yellow. And then I gotta push that down. And some of this very bright kind of pyrrole red. Let's see. Oh my goodness, that's stuck. Hold on. Okay, here. Ooh, look at that. Thick, thick paint. It reminds me of that tempera paint that you used to get as a kid, you know, in your elementary school, and it would come in a powder, and your teacher would mix it up. Sometimes it would be too thin, you know, depending on whether or not she put the right amount of the powder in it. It was a lot of fun. Reminds me a little bit of that. And then some white, just to tone down those two very bright colors and to be able to add some highlights. So let's see what happens here. I'm going to mix kind of a bright, almost yellowish orange, so I guess I don't want a lot of that red in there. Is that too much? Yeah, that's too much. Let's water it down just a little bit and we'll come back in with the yellow. I'll probably have to mix more of this before it's over. But I like that. That's pretty. That's a nice color. Even if it's not the exact color, it's pretty close. So I'm going to start painting these little flowers. They're just little tulip looking things, and but they're not tulips. I don't even know what they are. Maybe they're poppies that haven't like bloomed out all the way, but they look kind of like this. Okay, so there's a little cuppy looking. See that? The blue coming through? See the blue coming through? This may not work. And then there's another little bit right here. See? And some of it is highlighted. Oh, this is going to be hard. We'll see. We'll see. I just don't know yet. And we have, you know, other flowers have the petals coming out this way. And then some more petals around here. What I may have to do is put 2 layers on it. That's what I may have to do. Because some of this is just, it just doesn't look right, you know, with the blue underneath. And I thought it might be too transparent. Shucks, I think I was right. Let's keep going and see what happens. Sometimes I think stuff like that, and it turns out to be like the best painting I've done in a while. And I'm impressed. I'm like, wow, that went better than I thought it would. So we'll just see. Such pretty colors together though, right? Really pretty colors together. Okay, and then the one that's a little bit closer in. I'm sorry, I'm so congested here lately. Do these tulipy flowers. They're not tulips though, I tell you, because the greenery tells me they're not. They don't have the big thick leaves, they just have these little tiny thin stems. And then these little orange flowers on top. And I'm thinking that they might be poppies, because they're just not, you know, like poppies that just aren't open all the way yet. See, if I let that dry and come back with another coat of it, it's possible I'll get what I want. Let's do one like that. And one like this. They're all kind of pointed in the same direction. I'm not trying to be too, you know, too precise. I don't want to be too fussy with the flowers. Let's just put some in the background this way. This way. You see, the darker the sky gets up this way, it's harder for this. I mean, it's supposed to be opaque, right? But the truth is, it's kind of semi-opaque. And it activates, gouache is going to activate the watercolor underneath it. And that's why it shows through. So I wondered if this was going to work or not, and it may not. But I'm going to keep at it because I do want to find out. I want to find out, maybe I need more than one layer, and I can lay the flowers down now and then come back and paint over them, and they'll be good. So let's see what happens. I'll come back to you in a few minutes when I've got more done. Okay, so it did dry a little bit more opaque than I thought it would. And it's not completely dry, I must say. But we'll put a second coat on most of these little flowers and let's see what happens with that. Let's take the drier ones first. We'll just get another little, and you don't have to be like right in the lines exactly, because it actually looks like you've made another layer of petals if you're just a little bit outside the lines. So I'm not too worried about that. Get just a little bit more of that pyrrole red in there, or whatever you call that red, I don't know. I love the way it swirls. I think that's so pretty. They're pretty colors together, and they just look nice. Now see how the blue's coming through on that one. I really hope this will work. It looks like it is. A little bit. Okay. I don't know that I have enough yellow out. Sorry, I talk to myself all of the time. Let's have a jolly little conversation going on. What's really bad is when you're not even listening to yourself and you just say things, and then later on you go, did I actually say that out loud? Oh dear. Alrighty. Let's keep this going. I like this. This is gonna do, I think this is gonna be okay, because getting this next layer on it is definitely making a difference. Although I can still see through some, and I may have to put yet another layer. So we'll see. What about, and plus, you know, if these petals are kind of translucent, then it's okay if you see through them a little bit, because maybe in real life you would see through them a little bit, because it's that's the way it would be, you know, that you'd be able to see a little bit of the sky through the petal because it's so translucent. You knew what I meant. Okay. Now I'm going to let that dry, and then I'll come in and fill in maybe with some greenery, and we'll see, because the green's going to be fine. The green will be fine over the blue. Let's come back in a little bit and see what happens. Okay, so now I'm going to turn to my rigger, my number 2 Grumbacher liner, rigger, whatever you want to call it. And we're going to put some of the grasses in. And the grasses, I think, will be just fine being watercolor. And I may add some white gouache to the green just because some of it is a pretty light color. Let me just pick up a little bit of this pretty blue here and add that to the green. And yeah, that does a nice thing to that green. All right, so I'm going to start with, let's come in the background and just come down this way. We've got some blades of grass back there. I wish I had done this part while it was still wet, because some of those things are really fuzzy and faded out in the back there. And yeah, I kind of wish I'd done that. I could come back here and wet that down slightly. That would be a good thing to do. So maybe I will do that in just a minute. I'd have to let this dry, and I can do that for sure. Go get something else done. That's the way I do anyway. That's the way that I do all of my watercolor paintings. I'm constantly getting up and walking away and coming back later, and what you see is what I've cobbled together after the fact, sometimes a day or two after I started the piece. So yeah, you too do not have to rush yourself. You can always come back another day, even, or hours later or a few minutes later, however you want to do it. So some of these have leaves that come down, and down here it's mostly solid, and it's got a lot of green but also more orange than I'm showing here. It was really kind of packed with the orange and the green, and I'm probably not showing enough of that. But I also wanted some of it to peek through, And it's okay to put the leaves over some of the flowers. Put some leaves behind it, some leaves over it. These are small leaves. They're not very big. Oh, I just messed that blue up, didn't I? But that's okay. That's okay. That's okay. And there were a few little white flowers in the background too, so I added them in. And we have a bunch of these little leaves all through here. And I'm just kind of putting them in, as I see fit here. I'm definitely not trying to get it perfect. So I'll just work on this for a little bit. A little bit of this green now, and I'm going to add some of the white gouache to it, because some of the stems are kind of far away and highlighted, and they're a lot different looking than what I've got here, so I'm just going to put some of those in. So I'm using this combination of gouache and watercolor, and I'd love to know your opinion on this. Like, do you think that if you paint a watercolor picture and you add gouache to it, is it still a watercolor picture? Or have you changed the integrity of what you're doing? And so, if you were going to list something as this is a watercolor painting, would you be telling the truth? Or would you be saying, well, it's mostly watercolor, it's also gouache? I think of gouache as a type of watercolor. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just so different, it's different enough that you can't call it that anymore. I don't know. I don't know. I do know that if you enter a contest with a painting and you have to tell them what medium you used, you may have to say, well, some of it's gouache, and therefore they might call it mixed media. I don't know. So some little dots back in here that indicate other little leaves that might be poking through. Maybe blades of grass that are coming down over some of the flowers, maybe like that. We will just continue to fill in a little bit. I don't think I have to do a whole lot more, but I might come back with a little more orange gouache and see if I can't just put some little highlights in there. Some of these have highlights, so I could come back with some white and some of this orange and add some cute little highlights in there. I don't know how that's gonna look. Oof, I may mess up. But let's see. So if there's a highlight here, for example, where the sun's hitting maybe. What do you think? I don't know. With or without the highlight? Could be either way. It could go either way. I think it could go either way. Sometimes it looks nice with a little highlight on it. Just one petal that's a little bit lighter than the rest. You can see by doing this, if you don't like this, if you don't like the lighter orange on here that's been mixed with the white, can you understand then why a lot of watercolor artists will say don't use white? It messes up the color. Now, I happen to think that looks okay, and I'm not one of the people who thinks it's an uber sin to use white. But if you don't like it, if you're looking at this and going, oh, you just messed it up, girl, yeah, then that's why. That's why a lot of people say don't do that. Don't do that. Okay. Well, such as it is, I'm gonna call it. I don't know if I may tomorrow come back and put more stems in, or maybe even a little more fuzzed out orange into the background. And if I do, I'll show you a picture of that at the end of the video. But I'm going to stop for now. Oh, look at this one though. Wait a minute, we do have one. I've got one without a stem. There we go. Yeah, I'll go back and look and make sure each flower has a stem. But yeah, I may actually come back at some point and just poke in a little bit more color here and there just to see how it turns out. And if I do, I'll show you. You may think I messed it up, you may think it looks better. I don't know, we'll see. But I'm gonna walk away from it for now, because walking away is so important. Walking away and being okay with it not being done yet, right? You don't have to finish it in one sitting. So walk away and be all right with it not being done. It's okay. Come back tomorrow with fresh eyes and see what maybe you need to add. Maybe you don't need to add anything. Maybe tomorrow you look at it and you say, that's really good, I like that. So happy painting to you, and I will let you know if I change anything. Please don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time.